Shavua Tov and Shalom everyone, which means it is time for a new week of the Israel Brief. I'm Raylene Marks. This is the Israel Brief, where you guys from all around the world join me every Monday to Thursday, where we take a look at those top stories making the headlines in Israel. And we do it in partnership with these guys, Lay of the Land. And if you would like to receive Lay of the Land's weekly newsletter, please be in touch with us via our website at www.layoftheland.online. Now, so many of you complain to me that the news that you get on the Israel Brief is news you don't see in your media. You get Israel's side of the story, and that's why we exist. So if you like our content, please consider sharing, and subscribing. It is all for free, and we promise to keep it that way because our commitment is to bring you news from Israel that is balanced. So let's take a look at those headlines. And last week we spoke about UNRWA, that's the United Nations Relief Works Agency, and the legislation that was passed in the Knesset, that's Israel's parliament, to severely cut Israel's cooperation with UNRWA, which would also severely impact on UNRWA's work in Israel, the West Bank, and the Gaza Strip. Now, today is day 395 since the start of the war, which started on the 7th of October. And if you have been following the developments since that horrific day, you will know that there were many UNRWA staff who not only celebrated the atrocities of the 7th of October, but also participated. We had UNRWA staff that held hostages, that killed people, that raped people, that were actively part of Hamas. In fact, just several weeks ago, the IDF had killed the head of Hamas in Lebanon, and it turns out that he was also the head of the UNRWA Teachers Union. Now, as a working journalist, I have had I don't know if I would call it the privilege, but I've had the opportunity to review the evidence that the IDF collected of the bodies of terrorists in Gaza and in southern Israel after that day. And there were many UNRWA identity cards, UNRWA pay slips, UNRWA certificates. So UNRWA has really been part of the problem. And though we've had some spectacular hand-wringing coming from countries around the world, making all kinds of threats to Israel, the reality is that UNRWA has been perpetuating the cycle of violence rather than, first of all, helping Palestinians resettle in Gaza and the West Bank, but also perpetuating and inciting this idea of murdering Israelis and taking the land back. So yesterday, Israel's foreign ministry wrote a formal letter to the United Nations saying that we will no longer be recognizing or will be withdrawing from a 1967 agreement that recognizes UNRWA and their work in the above-mentioned territories. It must be stressed, and this was stressed by Prime Minister Netanyahu last week and in the letter from the foreign ministry last night, that Israel will continue to work with our international partners to ensure that humanitarian aid gets into the Gaza Strip. Israel has said time and again we intend to flood the Gaza Strip with humanitarian aid that includes food, water, medicines, medical equipment, fuel, shelters, and whatever is needed for the civilians of Gaza to live, to have their dignity. And we will also continue to work with other United Nations agencies that are on the ground. From the way that the UN has reacted, other countries have reacted, you would think that UNRWA is the only agency that has ever facilitated aid in the Gaza Strip, and that is not the truth. In fact, one of our stories coming up a little later in today's brief talks about another UN-based organization, and that's the World Health Organization. Now, in more daring news, the IDF announced yesterday that they had captured an Iranian spy or an Iranian-linked spy in Syria. Now, what is unusual about this story is that it's very, very rare, if ever, for the IDF to comment on any activity in Syria. Syria is also an enemy entity, but it is believed that this particular operative, his name is Ali Soleiman al-Assisi, was using his position to spy on IDF military installations and military positions, as well as monitor troop movements on the Golan and report back to the Iranians and help the Iranian-backed groups in Syria launch attacks. And if that was not just the only daring mission that the IDF embarked on, the naval commandos, the Shayetet 13, or in English you would call them Flotilla 13, also captured a Hezbollah operative very, very deep inside Lebanese territory. In fact, 140 kilometers, I have no idea how much that translates to in miles, but 140 kilometers north of Israel and Lebanon's maritime border. It's quite extraordinary how they did this. They released the footage. They went in, they got him and brought him back for interrogation. And he provides a lot of vital human intelligence on Hezbollah's naval operations, and you can be sure that Hezbollah will be attempting to tighten their security control over that. What I did find interesting was the photograph that was released of him in his naval attire, and he looked like the captain of the Love Boat or somebody on below deck. That's what he looked like for me. Didn't look like a tough naval guy, but apparently he holds a lot of extremely vital human intelligence. Now, of course, it is day 395, which means for 395 days, 101 hostages have remained in captivity in the Gaza Strip. We never forget about them. No matter the circumstances, we never forget about our hostages. And yesterday, former hostage Agam Almog Goldstein, a young teenage girl who was taken captive with her mother and her younger brother on the 7th of October from Kibbutz Kfar Aza, released a photograph that was found by the IDF in Gaza, taken of her and her younger brother and another young captive just the day after. And she writes, she says, with tired and frightened eyes, that a day before had seen the worst possible things imaginable. And she goes on to write this incredibly moving piece, speaking about how it is imperative to work for a deal, or to work to release the hostages, and describes the untenable conditions that they are being held in. She also addresses the hostages in her letter, saying that your families, your mothers are fighting so hard like you cannot believe to reach a deal, to make sure that the world doesn't forget about you, that you are released. Agam was taken with her mother and her younger brother after Hamas terrorists came into her home, shot her father, Nadav, dead in front of them in the safe room. And as they were leaving, her older sister, Yam, fainted. And as she came to, Hamas shot her in the face. Their harrowing story is in the documentary Screams Before Silence. It is available on YouTube. I encourage everybody to watch it. Screams Before Silence. It speaks about the crimes of sexual violence committed by Hamas against Israeli women, girls, and as we now know, some of the male captives that have been taken hostage. Meanwhile, yesterday, Israel's daily Israel Hayom announced that it is believed that there are only about 51 hostages that may still be alive. We know that 37 have been confirmed dead, but they say that even though the evidence is not conclusive, it is believed that additional hostages have died. And it is also believed that the Mossad chief David Barnea, who returned from negotiations last week, has told families that hopes for a deal with Hamas remain quite low. Last week I reported that Hamas had refused yet another ceasefire agreement, which would also see the release of some hostages. Meanwhile, we're not going to stop trying. It is our moral, our ethical commitment to ensure that those hostages come home. And finally, we go back to the Gaza Strip, where COGAT, that is the unit responsible for the coordination of aid in Gaza and the territories. And I really encourage you all, when you go into your Google, to type in COGAT. You spell it COGAT. It will take you to the government site, which shows you every day just how much aid is going in. Well, they've not concluded, but they've announced that in their second round of polio vaccinations carried out in the Gaza Strip, they have vaccinated about 35,000 Palestinians. And this brings a total number of 94,431 Palestinian children who have been inoculated for polio. 2 children who haven't been inoculated for polio are the Bibas brothers, Ariel, 5 years old, and Kfir Bibas, who in 2 months' time will turn 2. They have been held in captivity for 395 days. Meanwhile, COGAT announced earlier today that they had facilitated a humanitarian corridor yesterday to allow a convoy carrying food, water, fuel, and medical supplies from the Kamal Adwan hospital in the north of the Gaza Strip to other hospitals inside Gaza when an explosive device went off, damaging the roof of the hospital and also injuring 6 children. It is believed that the device was planted on the convoy by Hamas terrorists. Meanwhile, COGAT, in cooperation with the World Health Organization, will continue to facilitate humanitarian aid and the polio vaccine rollout. Happens when you're a Hebrew speaker. You read your words from right to left. So now it is time for your favorite part of the show, the audience question. I know it's your favorite part of the show because you guys keep telling me. And today's question comes from Derek Prinsloo, who says, is it safe to travel to Israel? How has the war affected tourism? Great question, Derek. Thank you so much. I would say that it is perfectly safe to travel to Israel. A lot of airlines have stopped flying to Israel because we still anticipate a possible attack from Iran. But El Al is still flying. There are still airlines that are flying, and it is perfectly safe to come to Israel. Obviously, you can't go to certain areas in the north where there are a lot of rockets being fired, but people are still going to places like Haifa and other parts of the north because tourism has really, really suffered as a result of the war. And we really encourage people not just to visit, but if you can shop for Israeli products online, you can buy wine, you can buy jewelry, you can buy all kinds of things online to help businesses that really depend on an influx of tourists. So it has affected the tourism industry. Tour operators are complaining that they have very little, if any, work. The hotels remain, I won't say empty, but not as full as they have been. But it is perfectly safe. And also a very important point to remember is that we are very well prepared here in the event of anything. So if there is incoming rockets or projectiles, you will hear a siren, you will know what to do, you will know where to go. If there are wider attacks from Iran, the Home Front Command notifies you immediately and you know to get to safety. So in the event of that, we are well prepared. So that is the Israel brief for today. Guys, don't forget to put your thinking caps on. I'm going to do the mensch and the moron of the week. I've already had some candidates for moron of the week. You guys are on the ball. And a reminder to check out our website at www.layoftheland.online, our Facebook page at Lottle's site, our YouTube channel is right here at the Israel Brief. If you have a question, pop it in the comments section. We are on X at layoftheland5, on Instagram at Rolene_Marks, on LinkedIn at Rolene Marks. And guys, as I always say, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. God bless you all. I will see you again tomorrow. Bye for now.